Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for attending today's training. Just a couple reminders before we get started. Please keep your microphone and cameras off to prevent distraction. Also, if you have questions, please type them in the chat box and I will relay them to our presenter as we go along. And lastly, if you need a certificate of participation, please email Stacy at the end of today's presentation and she will get that out to you. So with that, I am going to turn it over to our presenter, Scott College. He is going to be presenting. He is the Chief Operations Officer with the F5 project based out of Fargo. So I will turn it over to Scott.
Thank you, Kylie. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Scott College. I am the Chief Operations Officer for the F5 project. Just to give you a little background on F5, Adam Martin is the CEO and founder. It was founded in 2016. He started his first house, transitional living house, in 2017. Adam is a 5-time felon, and part of the process was he had started doing what they called an entrepreneur class in the Cass County Jail. And what he would found out is that, you know, he was going to do these presentations and telling guys, hey, when you get out, look me up, give me a call. And he ended up starting to put guys on his couch, and that didn't go very well with him having children and that kind of thing. So he decided to quit his, he was working in the tech world and decided to quit his well-paying job and started a nonprofit. So F5 is a nonprofit. From there, he moved on to about 2 other houses, one in Bismarck and 2 in Fargo. And I came on board with Adam in 2018. And from that point, we have, I'll provide the slides here. Kind of, if you have questions, you can ask during the slides. I'm cool with that. And our idea was, you know, to try to help people coming out of prison, jails, to have a better way of living, just, you know, given an opportunity. And I think a lot of you are aware that, you know, we're dealing with a lot of situations where people are unable, especially people with criminal backgrounds and addiction issues, credit scores, those kind of things hamper them from getting housing. So the process was F5 started the housing, transitional living, and through that process, we've built out a program that now serves through our other programs, and I'll discuss those in a little bit too. But we serve over 650 participants statewide. We have over 60 employees. When I started with Adam, we had 4 employees and about 15 participants. So we've grown exponentially in the state of North Dakota. We also have a house in Moorhead, Minnesota. So currently we have 2 4-plexes in Fargo that house up to 22 participants, our residents, and we have 1 house in Moorhead. We have 1 house in Grand Forks. We have 2 houses in Bismarck and 1 house in Minot. And in the process, our goal is to have the individuals that are in our homes, the residents of our homes, to be with us anywhere from 6 months to 18 months is our goal. We find that if people, when they're living with us for more than 6 months, the tendency for them to go back to prison decreases immensely. Our recidivism rate is about 99% with people that stay with us for 6 months. That's with getting new charges. There's technical violations where people relapse, that kind of thing. So do we have any questions early on?
Not yet.
Okay. So I'm going to give you a little background about myself a little bit to kind of give you some context of where F5 is coming, or where we came from and where we're at now. So personally, myself, I was in law enforcement for 20 years. I worked for the sheriff's office up in Minot for 7 years, between the state's attorney and sheriff's office. I also worked as a probation officer until 1999. So I have the experience of the other side of things, you know, as it kind of pertains. I then went into sales for 20 years. And I'm a recovering alcoholic. I have a little over 10 years of sobriety. So Adam and I had met through a program. It was kind of one of those things where ex-felon, ex-cop working together, this will never work. And it's been pretty awesome the way it's kind of played out because of the fact that we're both come from two different worlds and we're able to bring both of those worlds together and serve a common purpose. And that common purpose is to support people in our communities that our communities are failing to provide those services. And it's just one of those things where, you know, our goal is we offer numerous community services to support individuals on their path, as the statement says. But one of those is employment resources, and I work with a lot of different employers throughout the state. That was basically when I first started. That was one of my main focuses, was trying to work with employers to hire the people that we were serving. One of the bigger issues early on was, you know, I can tell you that when I first started doing this, I got the door slammed on me quite a bit from employers. You know, they just weren't interested in working with people with criminal backgrounds, you know, having some of those issues that they were dealing with. But I can tell you over the process with the part of it is where we've caught, you know, where we're at in the employment world. You know, people are always looking for people to work. And through that process, I think what's happened is they've been able to find out that when they are hiring ex-felons and addicts, you know, people that are in recovery, that those people are very loyal to them, to the employers, because what happens is they end up hiring somebody and that person becomes loyal because of the fact that somebody gave them a chance. So, you know, a lot of people talk about second chance programs. I don't like to call them second chance. I like to call them fair chances. And one of the reasons I call it that is because, you know, I look at it as, say you have a stack of resumes over here for people that don't have a criminal background. They look good on paper. There's no guarantee that those people are going to be great employees for you. You know, there's no guarantee. But what happens is if say one of those, somebody in that stack ends up not being a good employee, you know, the employer doesn't look at the rest of those employees as being that they're not going to be successful or they're not going to give them a chance. On the other side, when you have somebody that's got a criminal background dealing with recovery, if somebody in that side, they're not given that chance, because what happens is they look at that everybody else in that same context, if that makes sense. Because, you know, and I think that's something that we're really starting to overcome, and people are starting to realize that, you know, when we do give people an opportunity to turn their lives around and we do give them fair chances to be successful at a fair wage, that they are become very loyal employees and they work for these companies for a long time. We've had a lot of success with a lot of employers that have gone through the F5 project. And part of that, I think, is, you know, we've been able to walk along with them. We provide peer support, recovery services, free through recovery, community connect, and transitional living. So the state of North Dakota came out with a couple programs, one in 2018 called Free Through Recovery. And what they did was the Department of Corrections threw a bunch of money at behavioral health and asked them to build a program that helped bridge the gap for people coming out of prison, out of jail, on probation. And through that program, they started hiring providers. F5 became one of those providers. I think there's 63 providers across the state right now providing either Free Through Recovery or Community Connect services. And what that service is in essence community support. So we hire care coordinators in turn that work with we get assigned it from the state. It's a voluntary program. They work with the probation officer. If they agree to go into the program, they're assigned a provider. They choose whoever they want as their provider. And like I said, when I'm talking about the 650 participants, that's through our Free Through Recovery and Community Connect programs. And through that program, what happens is somebody will work with them on a weekly basis, helping them build up their goals. And again, part of it is we want to make sure, you know, our care coordinators are working with people that they understand it's not their goals, it's not the probation officer's goals, and not the judge's goals. It's the goals of the individual you're working with. And for a lot of people that we work with, that has never been the case. It's always somebody telling what they should do. We always say we don't want to should on people. You know, we don't want to tell them what they should do and shouldn't do. We want to help them, walk beside them. We're not going to do all the work for them. We always talk about, we're not going to do the heavy lifting. That's going to be on you. And through that process, we're able to provide community support, help them find, and there's 4 pillars that are set up for that free through recovery program. It's safe housing, education, employment, recovery, and staying law abiding. So in the process, what happens is the state looks at those 4 pillars, and if we are connecting in those 3 of those 4, then they provide outcome pay to the providers for those services. The program has been, just to give you an example, they started that program in February of 2018. By May of 2019, they had budgeted through for the program for 750 participants, and by May of 2019 they had over 1,000 participants. So they had to actually put a freeze on referrals, send it back to get some emergency funding for the program to continue, which they did, and then they increased that. And in the process, that was determined there's a large group of people that we were missing, you know, people that weren't on probation, that were dealing with other issues, mental health, addiction, homelessness. So in 2021, they came out with a program called Community Connect. And the Community Connect program is set up to set up the same on the same pillars, but the difference in that program was they came out with they have to be 18 years of age, live in the state of North Dakota, have an underlying mental health, addiction, alcohol, drugs, whatever it is, homelessness, pregnant moms, parents working with CPS, Child Protective Services, and then they're set into those same programs, and then the community resources are provided through that process. And the goal of the care coordinators and the peer supports is to continue working with those people to help them find jobs, find apartments, find housing, and be a productive part of the community. Another portion or another part of that, that's a big part of it, in my opinion, is the peer support. And the peer support, we have peer supports hired through F5. And those peer supports are usually people with lived experience. And that's kind of what F5 is built on, is lived experience. We have a lot of people working for us that are in recovery from either drugs, alcohol, gambling, mental health, whatever it happens to be. And the connection that's made between the people that are doing that peer support and the care coordination is something that can't be done on a regular basis, in my opinion. Because a lot of times what happens is that peer support, when they're talking to them, can talk to them about, you know, being in that situation, understanding where they're coming from. Because a lot of times, you know, if you haven't been through that lifestyle or had something to do with that, it's really hard for them to connect with people. And for us personally, I think at this point, I think we've hired 13 or 14 statewide people that were in our programs, that were participants, former participants of ours, that are now care coordinators and peer supports for F5. And I can tell you the power of that is, you know, having somebody sit across from them saying, hey, I was in that same seat 2 years ago, and today I'm in this seat helping people. So it really provides a lot of hope for people to try to make those changes and figure out what that is they want to do. And that's kind of what I'm talking about here with the care coordination, the recovery services, and the peer support. Any questions on that? So the difference between the free through recovery and the community connect, again, is the free through recovery is only for people on parole probation, and it's processed through the probation officer. The community connect is the program where they have to be 18 years of age, live in the state of North Dakota, have that underlying mental health or addiction issue, homelessness, that kind of thing. And that's ran through the behavioral health, North Dakota Behavioral Health. So it's 2 separate programs, but they mirror each other very much. And the pillars that I talked about earlier are the outcomes are determined through those 4 pillars. And it's a program where our goal is to transition people back into the community to find their own community supports. It's not a program where we want to keep them in this program for, on an average, they'll stay with us from a year to 2 years. But our goal is within that year to 2 years that they've found a place to live, they have employment or some kind of form of education that they're pursuing. They're in a recovery program, whatever that happens to be. And our big thing for F5 is we don't push any kind of program, any kind of recovery program, AA, NA, on anybody. Everybody has their own journey in recovery, and we want to make sure that we support whatever that recovery effort is. There's smart recovery, there's celebrate recovery, there's so many different options, Native American process. It's just what fits that person, because again, it's us trying, when we're trying to tell people what they should or shouldn't be, it just doesn't work, and that's then they get frustrated and they give up. So we just continue to try to working in with people. Our biggest statement for me anyway is our ability to meet people where they're at. Because there's a lot of people, I may be working with somebody that's, all they need to do is find a job. They have their place, but then I could have a person that's homeless and they need a job, they need to get in recovery. They're struggling with addiction, with their alcohol, with their drugs, whatever it happens to be. So our goal is to try to meet that person where they're at, and not try to put that, as we talk about that round peg in that square hole. It just doesn't work. So we continue to try to meet people where they're at, work with them at the level that they're able to work at, because I think that's when we start to see success. And I can tell you, we've had a lot of failures, but a cool thing about it is, even the ones that end up going back out, relapsing, getting arrested, doing some of the things that happen to them when they do fall back into that lifestyle, is they will end up coming back to us. And I think part of it is just planting that seed that there is a different way to live if you want that, if you're willing to put the time in, the effort, And that's another thing that we really stress for them, is that we're not here to do the work for you. We're here to walk beside you. If you give 110%, I'll give you 110%. But if I'm doing 90%, you're doing 10%, this isn't going to work. And it really shows when we see the people that are successful. And I think it's one of those things where the more we do it, we're starting to realize, the Community Connect program, again, it started in 2021. By 2022, 18 months later, they too had blown it out off the charts. And, they've gotten to a point now where we've actually had to put a freeze on it. And they're at 3,000 participants, and their goal was to be at about 16 to 1,800. And, I get it, when we're talking about, and I don't know if we have any legislators on board here or not, or if you have contact with your legislatures, what that tells me is the program's working. If we've got 3,000 people that need that kind of help, but we're going to be limited to how we can help them because of the budgetary situation, when we find something that works like this, I think the Free Through Recovery program kind of laid the foundation for that and was able to show, major strides in people changing, turning their lives around and starting to become, and when we think about it on a financial, if we do think about it on a financial quotation, it costs about $55,000 a year to house an individual at the penitentiary or one of the state facilities. We're talking, $500 and some a month that they provide for an outcome pay on a participant, and the thing is, as we're doing that, we're also helping that person start to be a part of the community. Now they're paying taxes. They're either got an apartment or a house. They're buying gas. They're going to the grocery stores. They're becoming a part of the community, and they're starting to add to the community instead of take away from the community. So I think there's a win-win situation there for everything that we're doing. So that's kind of our programming side of things, and I just kind of wanted to touch base. I kind of got asked to do this on short notice, so I'm filling in for somebody. So I just wanted to make sure I'm covering the things that you guys want me to cover. I'm going to go into our housing here in a minute. So are there any other questions or any questions on, the programming side of things, where we came from, who we are?
As of right now, no.
Okay. So I'm either doing a really, really good job or I'm sucking. So, either way, that was a joke. It's kind of hard. I'm just going to tell you, it's kind of hard when I can't see the people. So it's just kind of one of those things, I'm used to when I'm doing presentations on virtually, you see the people you're working with, so you can kind of see their faces to say they're really bored with you or actually they're enjoying the conversation. So
There is actually a question that just popped up.
Yes.
Does the participant have to be an established North Dakota resident?
Yes, great question. Yes, they do have to, and that's part of for the Community Connect. On the free through recovery side of it, they do, because they're going to be on parole probation with the state of North Dakota. That doesn't mean that they couldn't be somebody, say, that was in Minnesota or say Florida, and they moved to North Dakota and now they're on what they call interstate compact. So they're actually being supervised by the state, but they may be from another state, but they're actually living in the state of North Dakota. On the Community Connect side, that is one of the requirements. They have to be a resident of North Dakota. They have to be 18 years of age. One of the problems that we run into here, especially for us in Grand Forks and Fargo, is being on that border, with Minnesota. So, they could be over on the Minnesota side if they're homeless. We have 30 days to work with them to try to help them find housing, vice versa. So we do have the ability to work with people in Minnesota somewhat, if their intention is to transition to North Dakota, and if we can explain that when we're doing the application, we can get that approval. But otherwise, they do have to be a resident of North Dakota. Anything else?
Define how long they have to be here to be established, please.
For the programs, the Community Connect and Free Through Recovery.
Yes, I'm assuming.
Probably more so for the Community Connect. They don't really have to be established. It's just, if they're, because we are, a priority for the Community Connect is homelessness. So, we may have somebody that says, hey, yeah, I reside over in Minnesota, but I'm over here most of the time. So, there really isn't a time frame where we have, as long as they're in North Dakota and not have a permanent residence in one of the, like in this case in Minnesota, then they would be eligible for the program. We just have to figure out where we're going to, for the housing side of it, how we help them obtain that housing process.
So far.
Okay. And then the other thing, so the next thing I wanted to kind of, and it's on the slide here, is everybody deserves a place to call home. So currently we have 7 homes, transitional living homes across the state. So as you can see there, we have 2 in Minot, or 2 in Fargo, and we have a third women's one coming, and then we have the Moorhead property. Our goal is in the very near future, hopefully by June to September of next year, is that we also want to have a separate housing facility for pregnant moms that are dealing with trying to get off of drugs. So they're dealing with some kind of drug addiction. So we would be working with them, housing pregnant moms, as expecting moms, as they are transitioning, trying to maintain sobriety and kind of provide that support to them while they're going through that very difficult, trying to come off the drugs and those kind of things. So that is definitely in the works. It's a very much needed area of housing, transitional housing, that is definitely needed in the state of North Dakota. So we're hoping that we can kind of at least fill a part of that with this new program that we have coming out. We have 2 properties in Bismarck, 1 in Grand Forks, and then our most recent one is we purchased a house in Minot. So we can house up to 9 people in Minot. And Western North Dakota is really an area where we have offices across all 8 of the major cities in North Dakota that we do Community Connect and Free Through Recovery. So we have F5 offices, but these are the 4 areas that we actually have our housing set up for this side of it, transitional living. Our qualification is they must be 18 years of age, dedicated to rebuilding their lives, a minimum of 30 days being clean and sober, crime-free of charges related to sex offenses. We don't take sex offenders. A lot of it is because in all of our other houses, we actually have landlords or we rent the properties. We also look at violent crimes against women and children that do not qualify for our housing process. Some of the program information that we do is we do random drug testing, breathalyzers. We'll do those on a random basis. We have weekly housing meetings and reentry meeting. They're required to go to between 3 and 5 meetings a week, and they can pick what those meetings are. One can be an AA meeting or an NA meeting, but they are required to go to our housing meeting and our reentry meeting. And through that reentry meeting, some of the areas that we like to work on, budgets, building credit scores, a lot of the things that, figuring out how to act at a job, how to not react at a job. Somebody upsets them, in the past, their history has been, that it becomes confrontational. We all know what that can do in a workplace and what it can do to culture. So, we work with them on interviewing. We work with them on trying to figure out ways to resolve conflicts, resolution of those conflicts without trying to de-escalate those situations. We get them connected. They have to have a job within 2 weeks of working or living with us. We also get them connected with landlords. We do have a few of the larger property management companies that we work with that have a agreement with us. If they are with us for 6 months or longer, they get a certificate signed by Adam. But that also includes, that they've kept their room clean. They've done the things that we've asked them to do. They follow the rules that are required of them. And he'll sign that. A lot of times these property management companies will use that to kind of offset the criminal records. And then the application process can be completed online. So there's one of the big things that I've seen, is and I think we're dealing with a lot of landlords here too, is the credit score. And I think that's important. One of the areas that we really want to try to work with the individuals that we're working with, the residents of our houses, to help build up that credit score. Because when you're in prison or jail, first off, you're not going to have an opportunity to work on it. Second, if they've gone back to prison or gone to prison, they probably have outstanding bills, outstanding things going on in their lives that are going to affect their credit score. And I think that's a big barrier that we run into working with landlords, is figuring out, we have a lot of people that are running at a 550 to 600 credit score. So, we bring in different agencies to come and help us, kind of give ideas on, getting a credit card, maybe getting a secured credit card. How do you build that credit up, and some of the things that you can do to pay down some of the things that you may have outstanding, if there's judgments or anything out there that need to be cleaned up. So we work with them on a regular basis to make sure that they get those things in place. And as far as the application, we don't do a paper application anymore. All of our applications are done online. We do have the ability in certain situations with some of the jails, county jails, if they need to utilize it, that we can have that submitted, and then we'll input that information for them. So, any questions on the transitional living?
Not sure if this was directed for the transitional living, but there is a question. So are these programs low threshold? Do participants need to have a valid or current ID? And do you have an option for family situations?
Okay, so for the first part of that question for the IDs, one of the things that, I speak highly of our Department of Corrections. They've done an amazing job of, adding rehabilitation to that status. I can tell you as a former probation officer 20 years ago, 25 years ago, that wasn't the case. We had a lot of mentality of cuff them and stuff them. People need to go to prison, need to go to jail. They're a menace to society. And, a lot of it turns out to be, a lot of it is addiction driven. People, I can go into a meeting, we do a lot of jail meetings, prison meetings, and I can pretty much tell you if I ask people, were you under some kind of influence under some kind of substance when you committed your offense or alleged offense, they're going to raise their hand. So addiction is a big part of it. Mental health is a big part of it. And as we go through that mental health part of it, I think part of it is we're trying to figure out, how do we get to the core of those problems? And the cool thing about where I was going with that is the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation has now started working with guys prior to them coming out, helping them to get either a social security card or their driver's an ID. A lot of times it won't be a driver's license, but it'll be just an ID card. And that, when I first started with F5 in 2018, that wasn't the case. So that was some of the work that the care coordinator and peer support would do with the person. That's the first thing they would do, is help them get an ID, walk them through the process. Maybe, some of them don't even have social security cards. So we'd work with the social security department. We have real good connection there also. So we would help them in that process and taking that first step, because, you're going to need that information. You're going to need all of that if you're going to get a job. So, I think part of it is, though, I can give you an example of one of the guys I was first working with back in 2018. And he was one of the biggest guys I've ever worked with, but he had never gotten an ID, and he always worked for cash. And I just asked him one day, so why haven't you ever gotten an ID? He said, because when I go there, they make me feel dumb. They feel like they make me feel like I should know this stuff and I don't know it. And I think that isn't a hit on anybody in the, wherever. It's not a shot at anybody. All it's saying is we as a society just assume people should know certain things, and we just forget that sometimes, all this guy needed, I went with him, walked him through it, helped him fill out the application. And, he got a job 2 weeks later. He called me crying about a week later, and I thought, oh no, something terrible happened here. But it was tears of joy. He actually told me the company that we had gotten him a job with allowed him to run a $50,000 machine. And he said, nobody's ever trusted me with anything like that in my life. So that's pretty emotional, pretty moving, when it's a little, very small thing, but in that world, that's a big thing. So I think, we're starting to recognize some of those things and starting to identify them, and starting as communities that there's things that we need to do, and one of the things I always talk about is 95% of the people that go to our prisons are getting back out, and they're probably coming back to our communities. And I think there's some responsibility on us as communities to figure out, how do we help these people? I always say, the best way to raise money is to get some dogs and cats and some kids, because people throw money at that immediately, which is awesome. Not putting anything down, but if somebody's down and out, that's their problem. It's not my problem, but it really is our problem, because it affects all of us in the community, that where we're going to move with that. So I think as we're moving forward, like I said, the Department of Corrections is allowing people to start getting their IDs before they leave. In fact, that they're making it a priority before somebody is released, that they have some form of identification in hand before they leave, which I think is a huge step on, and a huge shout out to the Department of Corrections for recognizing that. And In fact, I'm on a committee we meet every other week with 7 or 8 of the Department of Corrections staff and a couple other community support partners that we talk about the things that affect people when they do get out, that may help them do a better job of case management while they're in their facilities. Like the simple thing of credit scores, they said we never even thought about that. That's something that maybe we can start working on, them improving doing some of the things that they need to do while they're still incarcerated. And the second one was second part.
Do you have an option for family situations?
We don't, it's kind of unfortunate, we don't have that capability right now. The closest thing we'll have to it, again, like I said, is the expecting mothers. They'll be able to have, if they have other children, have their children with them. But I think there's, I know of a company or a nonprofit that's also working in Minot now, that they're actually doing a treatment center, or starting one, that they allow the parent, the mom and the children to be together while they're going through treatment, which I think is huge, because that's a big separation, especially if somebody's trying to get their life together, and then they've got all these other issues going on this side of it, and they can't see their kids. And, it just, I think if we can kind of find a way to bring all that together, and that's one of the things that we're working on our strategic plans, is to figure out how do we do that and continue to do what we do. The reason we don't do it with on the male side of it, where we're at right now with our male houses, is that, we're trying to build an environment of recovery that kind of, it's still their home, so that room that they have is theirs. Now, if we start bringing in a bunch of family members, it really can throw everything off. So it just becomes, we don't allow visitors or family members in the houses while they're living there, just out of the respect for the other people. And that's the other reason, on the recovery side of it, if somebody's using or comes back and they've been using alcohol or drugs, they're asked to leave that day. And a lot of times we'll get them a hotel room for that night, find out where they're at. If they're, we'll meet with them again. Doesn't mean they're automatically kicked out, but it means they have to be removed from because we don't want to jeopardize the other 9 or 10 or 11 guys in that house that are really working on their recovery, because that can be a big trigger for a lot of people. So, we have to maintain the safety of the other people in our houses. So, but in those situations, a lot of times we will actually work with them. If they are in a place where, like, man, I screwed up. I got in a jam and I didn't know what to do, and I went back to what I know. And that's a big thing about recovery. People go back to what they know, what's comfortable. And if they don't have another solution for it, that's what it ends up happening with a lot of people in recovery. But if they are in a spot where, hey, I really want to try this again, I want to stay sober, I want to be clean, we will give them another chance in our houses. So again, I had mentioned right now, as of I think she has July 21 on there, but that's July of 23. We have 643, but we're over that now. We're over 650 participants statewide. And we've had 91 housing participants in January of 2023. How does somebody get connected to everything that Five has to offer? That's just, if you go to our website, we have access. We have an email. There's and I've got them at the end of the slides here. And just so you know, I'm not a slides person, so this is kind of my first run with slides. So I'm kind of a wing it guy. I just want to tell my story and tell people where we've been, what we do, and where we're headed. So in essence, when we're looking at what we're trying to do at F5, is we're trying to duplicate or replicate what we're doing in Fargo with our houses. We want to have a house in every city in North Dakota, in every major city that we have our offices in. We want to have a transitional living house in those cities. So, our goal is to be in Dickinson, Williston, Jamestown, Devil's Lake, And, that's going to be in the next between 23 and 25 that we are going to make that happen. And again, we're just now entering, I just hired a youth director for F5. He's going to run our youth program. So we're in the process of implementing a youth program. And our goal there is to start using the peer mentorship programs that we've utilized with our adults with kids. In that process, a middle-aged white man coming in talking to a bunch of kids about how to get their life together and how they need to change things, I'm just not going to have the same effect as some of the people that work in my office that are younger, that have been through difficult times, been in foster care. They've had all these things happen to them. They walk into a room, and I've watched it. I've witnessed it. We have a program in Moorhead where we were working with their alternative living or alternative school, and we were able to show them. We did a program for 10 hours a week, kind of a pilot last year, and then this year they moved up to 30. But we were able to. They had 3 of their kids graduate. 2 of them went to college. They had a large reduction in the number of students in that program that were on probation or went back on probation. And, there was a big de-escalation or a big decrease in the amount of actual physical violence that was happening in the school. So I think what we see there is, similar to what we're doing with the peer support on the adult side, is there's a connection, and somebody gets them. And a lot of times people are just looking for somebody to maybe not understand them, but at least get them a little bit. And be able to relate to them and maybe build that rapport and build that connection. So that is another area that we're really going to put our feet in the ground and try to build a youth program that is second to none. So as I mentioned, for the housing side of it, it's just housing@f5project.org. If there's other information you're looking for, services, anything that we can do, questions we can, if we don't have the answer, we'll find it for you. We're all about people showing up and being a part of what we do. And then our phone number is there. So if you're looking for just service information, it's just info@f5project.org. And then that's the phone number there. One of the other cool things, as I kind of tie things up here, is we actually partnered with Midwest Mental Health in Fargo, and we've opened in our office in Fargo, we have opened a mental health walk-in clinic. So we have the ability from 7:30 in the morning to 11:30 from Monday through Thursday for somebody to walk in if they're in crisis, and they can see a provider. And I think that's huge. I can tell you just today, between the virtual meetings and the office, Jackie told me they saw 29 people in Fargo. So, and I think part of that is in the process, what we're doing is helping kind of wrap around services for that person, either a license, they get an assessment, we'll help them with SUD vouchers, with Medicaid. If any of you have ever done federal forms or tried to figure out paperwork, it's a struggle. And can you imagine if you're in crisis and you're trying to fill out that kind of information, how devastating that could be, or how, a lot of times what happens, people just throw their hands up and say, I can't do this. And I can tell you a majority of the people that we have talked to, if you ask them if you filled out, they said, yeah, I started, but I couldn't figure it out. So I just quit. So I think having those wraparound services, because our thought process on that is, a lot of times if somebody's in crisis, for them just to get to our office was a huge struggle for them, and now we're going to tell them, which happens. And again, it's not a shot at anybody, but you go one place, they say, well, you got to go over here, you got to go over there for that, you got to go here. So our goal was, as best as we can, is to provide that wraparound service. So they get a care coordinator, peer support, an addiction counselor, a social worker, and a provider that can look at medicated assisted treatment. And we do provide medicated assisted treatment, or we do allow it in our houses. That is definitely something that we feel You know, and that's one of the requirements, even with the state of North Dakota, if you're going to do any transitional living, is to be willing to provide that or allow that. Because again, it's who are we to decide if a doctor has prescribed something, how we can say that they can't have that. Doesn't make any sense in my opinion. But I don't know if that covered a lot of the things that we were looking to cover. I'd love to hear some questions or concerns that I didn't cover.
Does anybody have any more questions or comments? What is your best success story?
What is my best success story? Well, I'd have to say, and she's given me the okay to, I won't use her name, but she's given me the okay to tell her story in this process. And again, here's an example of a program. You know, we had a program with Sanford where we were going to their 7th floor at the time. I think it was 7th floor, but it was their detox unit, and people coming down, whatever the situation may be. And we had a young lady that had just overdosed. She was in. We ended up showing up. We had a contract with them to come twice a week to spend 2 hours every so 4 hours a week meeting with people and discussing. You know, do you want to do something different? If you do, you know, here's some of the information. We can connect with you. You can meet us at our office when you get out. We'll come and get you. You know, transportation is a big issue for people dealing with these situations. And she ended up requesting our services, got connected through our Community Connect program, was one of our participants. And that was in 2019, I believe it was. She was with us for a little over a year. In that time frame, she ended up becoming a trainer for what's called Smart Recovery. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that. But Smart Recovery is an option different than AA or NA or some of those things. So it just kind of goes through the thinking process of the actions of people that they take and where it takes you. If you do this, this will happen. So she became a facilitator, went through the training. And in the process, we ended up hiring as a care coordinator. And she now works in Fargo as one of the care coordinators and does an amazing job meeting with people. And I've sat in meetings with her with somebody that's really struggling, and the connection that she has with them, it just blows you out of the water. So it's just knowing that, you know, we were willing to take a risk on somebody that, you know, a little year and a half ago was, you know, had overdosed and was in a really, really tough situation. And I think that's a big part of it, is when we start to realize that, you know, when we do reach that hand out to help people, that impact can be huge. You know, and you may not see the results immediately, but as landlords, as providers, whatever it is we're doing, you know, when we're willing to take a risk and take a chance with somebody, sometimes the results will blow you away. And I'm not saying that's with everybody. I'm not, you know, that's not going to be the case. We're not going to have success. And I can give you failures on that, you know, where I've had people that were doing great, and for whatever reason, something happened in their life that they decided that they wanted to go back to that lifestyle. And, you know, we've had, you know, I had one care coordinator in less than 2 months, had 4 people pass away at that overdose that she'd worked with. And that really takes a toll on our care coordinators and our peer support people, because they have established relationships with these people, with the people they're working with. And, you know, when they're starting to see success, and then something like that sets them back. And, you know, and as we know in our communities right now with the fentanyl crisis that we have, you know, the risk is tenfold for people overdosing. So, you know, those are some of the things where the job isn't for everybody. You know, I've had staff that have lasted 3 or 4 months and they're just like, this isn't what I expected it to be. So, you know, there's just a lot of responsibility that comes with the positions that we're utilizing, but it is an opportunity for a lot of people with lived experience that, you know, that's probably one of the bigger things that I've had to navigate I was the kind of put all of our programs together. So I did programs for for the first 3 years I was here, but working with a lot of people that hadn't been in a professional setting. You know, I've come, like I said, I come from law enforcement. I was in law enforcement point, you know, there's professionalism that comes with that. And most jobs there's a professional status that you need to provide while you're at work. And just for a lot of the people that we've hired with lived experience, they don't have that professional background. So, you know, it can be an issue with boundaries, with some of the things that we have to implement. So we have to do a really good job of training and making sure that we're providing, you know, them the knowledge and the information so that they can do a better job and do a more professional job.
Good. What is your success rate so far?
Well, through the like I said, with the housing side of it, we're looking at about a 99% with people that stay with us for 6 months or longer that haven't got caught a new charge or haven't been charged with a new offense. There's been other ones where they've been revoked because they've relapsed, and it's in the probation world, it's called technical violations. So technical violations would be not reporting, you know, using alcohol or drugs, you know, violating some of the technical parts of their probation agreement. On the Community Connect Free Through Recovery side of it, we have with the people that work in our program, we have 75%. Then that's coming from the state of success.
Any more questions? Excuse me. Do you ever have to turn people away?
Yes. Yep. You know, we have on the housing side of it, you know, if there's certain things, you know, like I said, with the sex offenses, a lot of it is attitude. You know, I think in one of the slides there, we talked about, you know, having they're dedicated to rebuilding their lives. You know, there has to be a commitment on their side. You know, one of the things that we talk to them about, especially we go inside the prisons, interview people all the time for housing. And, you know, one of the things we try to find out is, are they looking for an address? You know, they're coming out of center, the halfway houses. You know, are they just looking for a place so they can put their name on it and then boom, they're gone? Or are they actually looking at, you know, making a commitment to trying to change their life and do something different? So, you know, we in those situations, you know, we just won't accept them into our housing program. On the Community Connect Free Through Recovery side, like I said, the Free Through Recovery side, that is controlled by the state, you know, as far as the referrals process. And so is the Community Connect. In essence, there's an application that we fill out. What we've noticed is, like I had mentioned earlier, that number has gone up to around 3,000. So they've kind of had to put a freeze on referrals and put a priority to referrals. So, you know, the thing about F5 is, you know, where we also like to really kind of pride ourselves on is we are going to find a way to help somebody, you know, and even if that means we have to figure out a different way to go than the Free Through Recovery or the Community Connect. If somebody really wants to change their life and wants a different way to live, we're going to help them to figure that out. But again, you know, a lot of it comes back to attitude and, you know, where they're at in their recovery or in the attempt of recovery. So a lot of it comes down to the, you know, how much are they willing to put into it? You know, I just before I started this meeting, I had a guy just showed up. I'd worked with him in 2018 and 2019. He's gone through some different, he did really well for a long time, and then he went through some tough times, and he just asked me, he was actually crying in the lobby about, he just got a manager's job, and he just wanted to let me know that, he got into a little more trouble. He's working on getting that cleaned up, but he's facing it, and he's going to keep his job. And, the importance of what this program did for him while he was trying to get his life together, which, to me is just, it's everything why I do this job, why I'm in this position, why we're here to help people is, we're not going to help everybody. That's the reality of it. There's a lot of people that just don't want to be helped. And that's not, I don't want, not that we're wasting time on those people, but I don't want my staff utilizing that time that could be used for somebody else that actually wants that help. And I think that's important when we're going through that process.
All right. Anything else? I just want to thank you, Scott, for taking time out of your schedule to present. I know it was kind of last minute for you. So thank you. We really appreciate it. It was great information. Again, for those of you that are still on, please, the survey will be sent out here. Please take a few minutes to fill that out and provide any feedback or future topics you would like to see and hear for the upcoming spring sessions. And then if you need a certificate of completion, please, or participation, please email Stacy and she will get that out to you. So thank you again, Scott, and I hope everybody has a wonderful day.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate that. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.